Okay, Crandall's now in Sasquatch land, Sasquatch sanctuary, and my dog is laying down next to me wanting to go for a walk and go outside. So she somehow starts jumping on me. I apologize, but this is recording number 2 to save us some time so that you can be in your prime. That message is kind of sublime. Yes, I did try to rhyme. This is a space for you to think about your teacher research project, which I think you have more a grasp upon than you even realized as I look at the work you did in action research and you move forward as we move in the final phases of data analysis. So I'm going to share my screen again. Hopefully go quickly so that you have space to start working until you have to conference with me. So this is session number 2, sharing my screen. Here we go. This is happening now. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. All right. The teacher research project, what's in the net? So research is all about, you went out last semester, you have taught maybe a couple of years in the case of Chelsea, and you had questions that you were asking and you throw out the snap, and you pull it back in. Well, what did you get? Well, that's the data that you've collected over time. So when I pulled in my net, I actually caught a mermaid, which I was pretty excited about because I didn't think they were real. And SpongeBob all of a sudden appeared. I was like, oh, wow, look, I got SpongeBob. What's that supposed to mean? Okay, that's a really bad joke. So moving on, this is the teacher research project that was handed out to you on the first night. It's part of the syllabus. We've been going over and over it again and again, and it's thematic to what we wanted to accomplish in Capstone. I do think it's important to point out that these projects are helpful to your future career. Go by, construction workers, and making noise. All right, they're going by. And so you have this. I'm going to refer to this and I'm going to move on so that I don't take up too much of your time. We have talked about the public sharing, which is happening a week from today, actually. We talked about audiences and modes. Your response number 5 has that came in today or are still coming in today have discussed what you're thinking about, and I've already even analyzed that. I think it's amazing. We did the class before we discussed about making sense of random finds. I gave you a bag and you had to make sense of what kind of person is this? This is actually an interesting random find on the internet of random finds, which I'm looking at that. And with the net metaphor, if you pull in the net and these are the things that you pull in, what might you say? Well, you might think that fishermen and women tend to be smokers who are pretty vain and like to comb their hair and they like to drink Miller Lite. Yeah, maybe that's not what you find. But anyway, so this is, you collected data. I don't have your data. You have your data. This is the place where you try to make sense of it for others to an audience that makes the most sense to you. And we're really looking forward to those presentations, and that's for next Wednesday. Helpful to that presentation is work on the teacher research project. And so I'm offering this framework as how I would approach this as a writer or as a student or as a teacher who has collected data in my classroom. You obviously want an introduction, right? Tell your story, like why did you choose the question that you did? What brought you to that question? Have a clever title for the work so that it leads people to want to attend or read what it is that you did. At the end of the introduction, which is usually 3 to 4 paragraphs of personal context, you might write something like, for these reasons, I set out with the following research question, and then you name your question, right? And that's how the introduction works, right? And by the way, this is if you casted a net and you pulled in a bunch of Muppets, this is what you might find. For a while, I wanted to be Beaker, but in the end, I'm really just Kermit the Frog, which is okay. Why are there so many songs about rainbows? Okay, I'm done with that. In terms, another way to look at this, I usually, after an introduction, and some of you have hinted at this in your responses, and I think it's a good idea, I call it terms in use. After your introduction, you might want to have a subheading that says terms in use, where you say, the following terms are very important to this research, and for these reasons, I'm defining them here. And you can actually cite references for the definitions of those terms and put it in context of your own synthesis. And this would only be a paragraph or two. This is helpful to reading the research if you feel it is necessary. You might have asked a question that doesn't require that, but if you think like in the terms of like growth mindset, for example, in the case of a couple of the research projects, that's a term that might need to be defined early on and it would be helpful to your readers. The next phase is the literature review, chapter 2 lit review, but you're not doing chapters, you're just doing a paper. So you've all read several articles and have sources from all your classes. In the feedback that I've given you, I've tried to kind of guide you with saying, oh, here's a statement you might make. Statements can become themes, themes can become subheadings, and they help organize the writing. Hello, telephone man, drive by, make noise, bye. All right. Yep. Okay, dump truck, you're going to go by too. Okay, I think you can hear me again. So from all the articles you read and all the courses you've taken, you can kind of say anyone who reads these articles and have attended these classes might come to the following conclusions, right? 2 to 3 statements. And if you frame it in such a way, you can then have a theme and then you can kind of discuss what the others have said. That's where your lit review works. You don't want to just summarize the research and say, this research said this research said this. You want to join it in conversation, you know. Many people in the field of education have found that blah, blah, blah. In one study, yada, 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 so-and-so stated this, you know, and if you quote a couple of times from those studies, it's helpful, or if you paraphrase, it's helpful, but you want to put all the literature you reviewed in conversation with each other to make a couple of statements because it helps to guide you organizationally, all right? And I would use these statements as subheadings, so that's good. The second part of the lit review is you might like have an introduction to your subheadings with something like, throughout this study, I consulted 2 years of coursework and a variety of literature from varying journals. The literature offered the following themes, which will be discussed below. Theme 1, theme 2, theme 3, right? Okay. I just got my tongue stuck to the front of my teeth when I said theme. And so it sounded weird. So if that came out weird, that was because I don't know why my tongue stuck to my teeth. All right. So I just did 3 statements that I think about literature reviews, and then I'll go from them. So like I might have a subheading, literature review should be concise, and then I could cite the reasons why I think that, right? The review should be beyond summary, review beyond summary, and the reason why you want to have that conversations between the articles rather than just a summary. And then the last subheading, it's all in the research, and a summary of the research shows that the best research is done this way. The literature review is usually 2 to 3 paragraphs per subheading. And I say that because I want to save you time and get concise with what you're doing and not get lost in all the work that you've read, because it can be overwhelming, and just get a really concise, like, this is what the research said, and this is what I drew from it to ask the question that I asked. All right. So then you go to the methodology. So the methods is all the data collection that you did, that you wrote up in action research, and it was your action plan. In this section, you tell the story of your question, what you collected, and you overview what you analyzed. I would, if you have it, include demographics of the location where you collected the data, the classroom, the school where you were, the participants. Now, for this class, you could say the actual name. Real research, most people use pseudonyms just because we hide the identities of the people that we work with, and we need actual permission to use the real names, but I'll leave that up to you. For purposes of this class, I think you are using schools as a subject, and it's fair game because you're analyzing what you did as teachers and educators. You can include the info from your data plan. A lot of it can be lifted. It's just a matter of cutting and pasting. I would say the methodologies is usually 4 to 5 paragraphs. You can also use, the subheadings if you want to use subheadings of location, participants, data collected, like a sum, you can do these in charts if you want to, because it does save time, but you're telling the story here of what the data was that you collected and why you chose to collect that. Some of you did interviews. Some of you have assignment analysis. Some of you have textual analysis as you've looked at different textbooks. This is where you tell that story. And then the most important part is the findings, all right? You've got this huge collage of things that you collected to answer your question this semester, but now you have to come out and make a case. And I say, in the same way that you look at literature and you come up with a summative statements that will help organize you, I say anyone who looked at all the data that I collected this semester might make the following claims from what the data tells, right? And then you could make 3 statements or themes of what your data collected tells you about your question that you asked in the context of the school where you worked. And I say to do that because if you have the 3 statements, they can also become subheadings, and those subheadings can be very helpful to organize how you want to talk about the abundance of data you collected in a summative way. Remember, you want to respond like, so what? How does it help answer my question? Okay, another error. I forgot to close the parentheses, not the quote on that, but that's okay. Carol, we're not squeaking, not yet. You can squeak in about 2 minutes because I'm almost done. All right, so that is the findings. Like, use 2 or 3 statements from your findings so that you can use it organizationally to pull out what you learned from your data, and in specific cases draw examples from the data so that you can actually make the case of why you're saying what you're saying. Your data is original to you, and so your analysis of that data is also original to you. Excellent. So then after you do that and you organize that, you have the discussion, and the discussion is after you revealed your findings and you put the data in connection with the research you reviewed. What was learned overall? What do you think about this? How is it going to help your practice? How's it going to help tomorrow's questions? What do you think others should know about the work that you did? And what were the limitations and what are the next steps? Okay, so this is the write-up, and then you have the conclusion where you get to stop and you get to say, hallelujah, it's done. Similar to the introduction, how would you like to conclude the analysis and sharings of your research, right? That's the game, right? References, can't forget references. Your generation's so lucky you didn't have card catalogs and you didn't have to go search in library stacks, because most of the stuff is online now. And it's quick and easy and so much faster than it used to be. So your generation is better off. So I'm going to end this particular recording and say to you that you have space now. Whether you choose to work on your teacher professional plan, because that's important, that's coming up on Monday, or you spend this time working on your research project, that's another doable thing, because we are going to be presenting next Wednesday, and it's a 4-hour class. And instead of me going at you for 4 hours, I designed tonight with respect to you, I think, so that you watch these short videos and then you have time to work, except for when you're in conference time with me. And when you are your group is actually in conference time with me, although you'll still have time to work there. I just need you for 15-minute check-ins as individuals. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I'm looking forward to seeing how this entire evening goes. And I wish you the best of luck, and I'll see you when you're in your Zoom session. All right, go us. Woo, woo, woo.